I did not set out with this compressor to offend mountaineering. I used it because it was something new.
Well, new it certainly was. But, to my mind, it's pushing climbing backwards, not forwards. To use a compressor requires absolutely no mountaineering skill at all, as far as I can see. It just requires a lot of very strong, fit men to winch it up, carry up the petrol, and blast away. It's a branch of civil engineering. It's not climbing.
Everything goes a full circle. And you can start off absolutely ignorant of something. Maybe you're the first pioneers, and you set off with very, very crude equipment. And gradually you improve it so that the standard of climbing goes higher. But eventually you can go a full circle. And when you've gone that full circle, like you have, with highly developed pieces of machinery, with a fella, of course, they'll say, well, it's very hard to hang onto one bolt, stand there and drill another, which I don't doubt it is. It takes a lot of physical effort. But of course, they'll make a little platform that you can clip on. You can stand there quite comfy, and that's the next stage. So eventually, this highly technical approach will come down to the stage where nobody's interested in it.
Each technological development destroys a small part of the danger involved in mountaineering.
And of the adventure.
And the adventure, yeah.
And the skill.
And the more and more mechanised you get, the less and less skillful and less dangerous climbing becomes.
Now, the big criticism about Maestri and his bolt seems to be that he didn't reach the highest point that had been climbed to without the bolts, and then used the bolts in the unclimbed part, that he just bolted at random. And this is what the outcry is about. Now, if you had reached the highest possible climbing point, and there was obviously nothing there, and you found his bolts going up this impossible bit, then would you have said, okay, it was justified to bolt that, because there was no other way of doing it?
Well, I would say no. Personally, I'm a bit of a climbing romantic, I think. I think it's rather attractive to have places, have regions of this earth where man can't get onto and trample. And for me, the Cerro Torre is one perfect example. When I read the original book about climbing Fitzroy, it said there, that this was one of nature's really sort of savage last strongholds. No one would get to the top. That seemed incredible to me.
I think it's only in the last 5, 6, 7 years that the bolt controversy has really come to the head, when people are seriously thinking about the complete condemnation of bolts.
Yes. We had the same thing. Before we went out, we said we wouldn't use the bolts, and yet when we were confronted with them, we'd come all that way, all that money had been spent. We had fantastic arguments, every day, about whether we should use them, and in the end we did use them.
Yeah, it's hard to maintain. You're so keen to get up to climb the thing, but
we'd also worked it out that we were going to go across Maestri's bolt ladder. If we got to the top, it wouldn't have been in the centre of the mountain.
Now, in view of your experience and getting to these high points, would you go back again to Cerro Torre and say, we're not taking any bolts?
Well, I think it would be nice to definitely say no. If you organise another expedition to Cerro Torre,
would you say,
I think it's the only way that would make it worthwhile going back. If you went back with bolts, it's defeating the object of it. The only thing that would make it worthwhile going back at all would be to go and clean all these bolts out and then reclimb it completely using conventional methods.
If you started to say, well, he placed 1,000, but we're only taking 50, you're still taking your bolts, aren't you?
We've seen, really, in the Alps, how this attitude has progressed. From 10 years ago, there were 20 years ago, better say, there weren't so many bolts in the Alps, but the numbers have crept up now. There are bolt routes on free routes which were done 10, 15 years ago, where none were needed. This is, I think the time has come really when we've got to sort of spell it out and say bolts, no.
Next to Cerro Torre, there is another tower which is equally as high, called Torriega, which is an obvious problem to future mountaineers, obviously lads of our age.
If I went back to Torriega and was to climb it with conventional means, I would certainly take bolts with me as a safeguard. I would not take a bolt machine to use consecutively, bolt after bolt after bolt. I would try and climb it as the best of my ability.
Yeah, but would you
with pegs.
Would you take the bolts to go up or to come down? I mean, there are two different things.
No,
here.
I would take the bolts, as probably Maestri did on his first attempt or ascent, whatever you want to call it. I would take them to safeguard my ascent and possibly descent.
But you could change your mind when you went out there.
You could change your
Now,
mind.
well,
Because this is what we did exactly. We said we would not use the bolts. And yes, when we went out there, we changed our minds.
Yeah, because the bolts were already in place. It was an
Yeah.
easy thing when you're
Ah,
getting,
it's the
when
same-
you're getting
same
pro-
question, really.
when you're getting really cold and you're getting pushed and you're
Yeah.
getting to the limits.
Yeah.
And there are bolts in front of you, so you carry on. You know, using somebody else's gear.
Yes.
Okay,
But
that's
the same
in
thing
place.
is with having bolts on you. You could say you're getting so cold, you're getting
No,
so
because
frightened.
the
I'll put a
slight
bolt
difference in
in.
your mind is because when you're putting a bolt in, it takes you a lot of effort to put it in physically.
Oh yes.
Not with a gun. I mean, a gunner puts it in 5 minutes, you know something. When you put it in physically, in hard granite, it's taking you 25 minutes to put a bolt in.
Yes.
In retreat, I'm sure that any man on earth would use bolts in retreat. I think even Don Whillans would use them on Everest in retreat.
I certainly would.
Yeah, I mean, it's your own neck that's at stake.
The thing is, I'm very reluctant to put them in because of the hard work involved.
Yes, I'm sure.
But
So it's not the ethics.
The Cerro Torre, to me, represents a sort of supreme challenge for traditional climbing methods. Yeah. It is possible to do it, to climb it, in a traditional way. What's wrong with having somewhere which is impossible, for God's sake?
I believe in absolute liberty, that we should each walk in our own particular circle, and that our own circle should not impose on the circles of others.
He's gone to Cerro Torre 3 times and he's climbed it to the best of his ability as he knows. That's his circle. Whether he wants to use a compressor or use it, whether he wants to use anything, he will use it. You know, I mean, that's his liberty to do it in climbing.
Yeah, but fine.
He's making his stand.
All right,
climbing.
he did this, but you say yourself that he ruined it for you.
He ruined it for
Yeah,
us.
well, so he's ruined it for you, so that his circle has impinged upon you.
As regards whether anybody's going to sort of tame these winds or be able to climb in the worst of these storms, I would say quite confident that they won't, because I can't see anything in the sort of near future that's going to.
I think this is the crucial thing about Cerro Torre, unless you've actually been to Patagonia. You've no idea how bad the weather is.
Well,
you can sit here and say the wind's bad and you get continuously bad weather. It's just so far from reality, it's just not true.
I still think, though, given a fairly normal conditions, a very fast and very efficient team of climbers who are prepared to stick their necks out, and you're going to have to stick your neck out if you want to climb it, could cope with the conditions. Yes. And this is what would make it such an outstanding technical achievement.
Well, when we come down from the highest point, we got to the highest point that we attained on our expedition, I was of mind that when we didn't re-attain that point, that it would take a really well-organised expedition, about 10 star climbers, another 2 decades before they get to the top of Cerro Torre.